Hey channel, this is Fernando from SkyFi Audio. Well, we did it again. You guys, if you're a fan of this channel, you may have seen us do a bunch of reviews on this magnificent JBL 4343 studio monitor. Well, guess what? After much waiting and anticipation, we scored a second set. This is good news for you fans that have been asking over the last couple of weeks if these are for sale. Well, they're not. These are our permanent in-house reference speaker that we use at a day-to-day basis, mated with these magnificent Macintosh monoblock amplifiers. Well, we were lucky enough to find a second set of 4343s here in our local market. We didn't even have to go that far this time. Last time we traveled a few hundred miles. This time they were actually here local in New Jersey from original owner. We pulled them out of a basement in fairly good condition. So I thought I'd take a moment to go over some of the features that I couldn't do on the last video, some of the internals and the structure, how the cabinets are made. Since we do have these open, I thought it'd be a good opportunity. So let me dive right in. As you probably know, the 4343 is second from the top of JBL studio monitors from the 70s. There is a bigger version of this that has double woofers, but it's a monster speaker, so it's really difficult to place in a room properly. So this is really the one to go after if you're lucky enough to find a set. So four-way speaker, it's got a 15-inch woofer, as you can see by this hole in the bottom, a 10-inch upper woofer or lower mid bass. Then it's got a horn radiator in the middle, which is 1.75 inches, and then the super high fidelity or ultra high tweeter, which is a 2405. So let me go over the numbers. 2405, 2420, that's the magnet structure, not counting the horn and the lens. This would be the 2121, and down below is the 2231. So a fantastic four-way speaker. As you can see from the bottom here, it is in fact a ported speaker, and we can give you a really great shot of what the cabin internals are like now that it's opened. You can see the massive 1.125, I believe, the face of the speaker or the baffle, and then you've got about a 4-inch port on each side of the lower speaker here and here. Looking a little higher, one thing that's immediately notable is that the upper bass woofer is in its own structure. If we pull back the fiberglass, we can see that it is in fact sitting in its own box, and a little peek inside reveals that. You can just make out the bottom right there. So this particular driver here is in its own internal structure or enclosure, and then the horn is mounted in the middle of the speaker, and the ultra high tweeter is optionally movable between the left and the right side of the speaker, which is really neat in case you want mirror image or you'd like to sort of play with your imaging and the placement of the tweeter. This is what this hole is for. You could take the tweeter from there and move it over to here. Pretty neat. Internally, we can take a look and see that there's a massive crossover there. It is housed in what appears to be a metal enclosure. There's a good shot of it. You can see some of the coils and capacitors and resistors and the bundle of wire coming out of it. Individual wires coming out for the woofer, tweeter, mid-range, and upper. Over here is a selector from the back that's a multi-position switch, a rotary switch that lets you dial in the speaker. Let's go to the other side so you can see what that's about. So that corresponds to this right here, the internal versus external. This lets you determine whether or not you're going to use the internal crossover or you're going to provide your own external crossover, either active or passive. Really neat feature, especially for the studio. They might have wanted to control the crossover points a bit better and provide different amplifiers for the highs versus the lows. It looks like low frequency is handled by one set of inputs, and the high frequency is handled by the second. I imagine 2 drivers per. Here we can get a look at a bit more at the cabinet. It's got a really nice patina to it. Nice warm glow to it. No significant damage anywhere. We do have a little bit of wear at the bottom of the speaker, which we're going to address. This is not uncommon for it to have been sitting in some moisture at some point, so it's got a little bit of a mildew at the bottom and slight lamination, which we will address and make them cabinets almost like new again. But overall, the cosmetics of the cabinet is really nice. It's great even finish. There's no real washed out surfaces or deep gouges like you see in such a heavy speaker. This speaker's got to be well over 100 pounds each one. Zooming into the label, here we see JBL Professional Series. This one happens to be serial number 11519, and some additional controls to control the three top drivers: the ultra high, the high, and the mid. You can dial it in plus minus 3 dBs. Also notable is the typical vintage JBL blue, which is the star of the speaker, makes it stand from the rest. And then over here are the lenses for the horns. The JBL 2308 lens. Believe it or not, this actually gets velcroed in place. So this sits in front of the upper tweeter, or the horn tweeter, and that sits just like that. Kind of a bit of a diffuser lens. Moving on, we've got the grills over here. Unfortunately, we're missing one of the logos from the grills. I'm not sure if these are blue or just faded black grills. I'll have to research that a bit. You can see it in the light here. They look kind of bluish. A pretty deep grill. It's almost 3 inches in depth, and that's necessary in order to clear the depth of the lens. Looking at the logo on this one, there it is, JBL 4343. So we're going to be in the hunt for one of these logos, as we're missing one. Our reference set does in fact have it, but it's been attached to the bottom of the crossover controls. You can see here. I guess the person that owned these before us decided that it was too good of a logo to put on the grill, since typically most people won't be displaying these with the covers on them. Part of the appeal of this is the blue with the large drivers. You can see the woofers and the upper bass drivers are missing. We've already sent them out to get redone professionally. Almost 100% of the drivers at this point have some sort of rotting around the foam, the suspension of the speaker, and that is this area right here. So this becomes brittle and cracks over time on both of these drivers. So these have already been addressed, and the new pair that just arrived should probably get them back in another week or so. So a couple of specs. These do run at 93 dBs, so they're incredibly efficient. As I mentioned before, we do run them with small wattage tube amplifiers and get great results from it. Some of the specs, it's 156 liter enclosure for the woofer, 14 liters for the mid woofer, and they do weigh 79 kilograms, which is 175 pounds. And that is mostly due to the heft of the magnets. The woofer magnet in particular is incredibly heavy. I forget how many pounds it is, but it's some ridiculous amount of metal in it. And then the thickness of the cabinets, they did not skimp. Cabinets are thick all around, not just the baffles, but also tops, bottoms, and sides. Even the backing is fairly heavy in gauge. So it says here in my notes that it is 1 inch thick and 3/4 in certain areas. Right around 1978 was the manufacturing date of most of these speakers. Let me see if looking into this woofer gives us any more, reveals anything else. No, we can't really get a look at the back of the horns. The cabinet structure from the upper bass is blocking it. But a couple other things to note. The baffle is in fact split into 2 areas. You can see the individual screws and then the seam right here between the top and the bottom baffles. So that's about it. A quick look at the internals of our 4343. Probably about a month from now, these will become available on our website, which is skyfiaudio.com. We do have 4 or 5 names already on the waiting list, but you never know what happens once they're ready to sell. So if you are interested in getting on the list, please drop us a note. But keep in mind, these are going to be expensive. They're not easy to find, especially in the restored condition for which we will be offering them. So if you're looking for a bargain, we're probably not the right place for you. But keep an eye on Craigslist and eBay. You never know. Sometimes they pop up, especially on garage sales of all things. I've heard people scoring some pretty amazing things there as well. So thanks for watching SkyFi Audio. Please subscribe to the channel if you enjoy the videos, and we'll talk to you soon.